Hey, we're live, and this is a last-minute impromptu live stream because for two reasons. I know you guys cannot wait for these reviews to come out, but I need to test all of my gear for the shootout. So,
Hey, we're live.
and already I have to turn down my echo. There we go. Shut down the echo right there. So I'm testing all my different audio microphones. So let's do a quick check. I can hear myself, so that's a good sign. I guess my audio is working. What I'm going to do is I'll be switching different audios. So right now I have my lav mic that I'll be using at the shootout. Then I'm going to be switching over to my shotgun handheld mic. And then, we're going to have more and more of these live streams, mostly for me to practice broadcasting and switching things over and getting the labeling right. But also, you guys are going to benefit from the Q&A asking me about these amazing TVs. So today, we're going to do a quick review about the Sony A95L. It's uncalibrated versus the calibrated Samsung S95C and the calibrated G3. And whether or not the calibration makes a difference is for you to decide, but I just wanted to show you what's out-of-the-box settings are like. And I haven't tweaked anything in terms of the settings themselves. I just put on basic settings without really playing with it more than gradation preferred or brightness preferred or vivid mode, right? Very basic settings. And you'll see some great things, some limitations, and maybe some disappointments depending on your use case. So as long as my audio is good to go, I'll be checking you guys as well for comments and whatnot. And so since I'm going solo today, because I need to put myself under pressure when we're doing the live stream, sometimes I might have to be solo. So this is good practice for me. So I have to manage the chat, the video, the reviews, and whatnot. So the labels I have are as follows. Right next to my head, right here, is the mode, the TV modes that they're all in. And then right below, down where it says HDR streaming on YouTube. So it's streaming on actually, you know what I need to do? Let me add more detail. On YouTube via Chromecast. HDMI. Okay, I think this is more clear because a lot of you might go, this is native. There is a huge difference between native and HDMI, and it's so big that this may actually determine your decision. So we're going to go over those differences. But right now, just to make it easy, I'm able to split between the three. Boom. We are watching. This is Jennifer Galla's channel, right? The HDR. Let's see, the HDR Super Channel, right? The HDR Super Channel, and she mastered this on the A95L. And so already there are some differences here. Actually, the differences with the G3. So let me turn up the exposure. You're going to see this. It's very interesting. I love this, by the way. I'm hoping you see this. Okay. So I'm going to turn up the exposure. Interestingly, the G3 is a little bit darker than the A95L and the S95C. So I'm going to pause it right here. This is the streaming content off of YouTube TV on Jennifer's channel. And I actually reached out to Jennifer, so some of you may have caught my conversation with her. I asked her, wait, is this supposed to be perfect black or what? And she's not available to join us because she's actually working. But she says that although it's slightly lifted, the question is, because it's not perfect black, the question is, why is the G3 slightly darker? Now, I know both the G3 and the S95C are calibrated, so there's an argument that maybe the G3 is crushing, maybe not. So this is something only the shootout can really verify, I guess, would be the way to go. But just something for you guys to notice. So the A95L out of the box is, the black levels are identical to the S95C, which has already been calibrated at its contrast and near black. So to me, this is a pretty amazing TV that out of the box, its contrast is already set to go. And with the G3, it looks great, and that's why I didn't know, which is more accurate. So that remains to be seen exactly what it's supposed to be. But I'm going to err on the side of saying the G3 might be slightly crushed, but regardless, this image looks great. So I'm going to take down the exposure a bit. That was just to let you guys see the slight black differences, and it's not because of the QD OLED ambient room, lifted blacks, blah, 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 because it's an almost completely black dark room. And so that's why it's lifted, because it's actually the content and not the TV itself. So take it back to the normal exposure should be at. Okay. Now, the good news for all you is this. On YouTube content, consistently, the A95L matches the brightness of the other two TVs. Now, this is on YouTube content, right? So we'll just keep on playing, and you guys can see as, let's make sure it's playing. There we go. So we're going to go through Jennifer's 2 videos that she specifically actually had used the A95L as her benchmark. So I guess this is kind of cool, right? And again, to remind everyone, the source is via HDMI Chromecast in 4K, not Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision cannot be shown on YouTube. So we're going to watch how Dolby Vision changes everything. But if you're watching YouTube TV, well, there really is no reason to get the Sony over LG G3 or the S95C, as their brightness, their color, it's YouTube, right? There's not a big difference. So let me go in and check the questions. And since I'm going solo today, please be patient as I try to catch your questions, and hopefully I don't miss any super chats. But yeah, those of you who threw out a super chat, just let me know. And I'd love to see the regulars out there. Let me adjust. Ooh, whoa, that was huge. Adjust where I put your comments so we can see it. All right. Hey, Mozart's goes. Homer showers with the gloves. You know it's true. Hey, you know what? I cannot confirm or deny. We're going to have fun today. You guys were just talking about my gloves. It's here somewhere, but since I'm typing and moving the mouse, it's so hard. The gloves get slippery when you type. I need to get tighter gloves, actually. All right, so let's go down, down. Hi, everyone. All the regulars are here. Thank you. Thank you. I don't want this to go too long. I'll try to cover as much as I can. And then if you guys have a question about the TV specifically, we're covering streaming via the Chromecast on HDMI, HDR, or Dolby Vision, and then native app, specifically YouTube TV for many of you who watch sports. There is a difference for sure. Hopefully I'm not too loud, Lisa. Unlike last time where you guys can't hear me at all, right? Don B, unless you're asking about the 65-inch S90C, we're still waiting if there's any way to verify the Samsung S90C 65-inch panels. Gen 2, if you're asking about the A95L, yes. All the Sonys are Gen 2, or all the Sony A95Ls are Gen 2. G3 crushes, that appears to be the case. And this is Jennifer Gala's content that you guys are watching. And if you look at it, it's very similar in terms of brightness. So if you're getting a TV for brightness, they're all pretty good if it's YouTube content. But I wouldn't pay extra for the Sony if it's just YouTube content, right? So let me see. See if there's anything else that I want to cover. Okay, so here's another one. This one, the blacks are lifted even further well, I don't want to say the blacks are lifted. It appears that the G3 crushes it even more in this scene. But let me go to this one right here, because this one's the latest one. I don't want to beat a dead horse. We already know the G3 slightly crushes. For many people, it's not a big deal, so I'm not going to overemphasize that. I don't think it's a big deal more often than not, but if you're in a dark room and you know exactly what a scene should be like, but you know, the argument of creator's intent and all that good stuff, you know, that's between you and what your preferences are. So we're still watching YouTube on the Chromecast, and it is HDR, and I'll just pause right here for you guys to see what mode we're in real quick. So you have all the settings, we're on the same page, right? So we'll start with the Sony. It is in professional mode, so that's its most accurate mode. I haven't played with any of the settings other than its default. And I normally set the, for those of you asking, yes, I just got the firmware update this morning. So there is a firmware update. We don't know what it does, but it is updated to the most current firmware update as of today, September 11th, whatever that could mean. So the setting is professional mode, and it may address some of the concerns I had before the update. So if you guys are like, wait, it looks great, I'll be like, you know what? Update fixed it. But I will tell you what I thought needed fixing And so brightness is on max, contrast default at 90. I'm not going to change that. Gamma is set. That's the default 0. Gradation preferred. You'll see that brightness preferred doesn't make a big difference, but who knows? Maybe the update it does, right? So this is off. Gradation preferred. Brightness preferred, literally no change. So on this specific scene, let me go to a different scene. Maybe it will change if we go into a scene that might have more subtleties, like this one. Okay, so here we go. All right, so let's try this again. We're on brightness preferred. I'm going to keep it on gradation preferred, by the way. No change at all. So, however Sony sees this scene, it doesn't believe that it helps at all with either one. And let's turn it off. Tone mapping off. Literally no change between HDR tone mapping off, gradation preferred, or brightness preferred on YouTube HDR. And if you guys want to know exactly what Sony sees, I found out you click on menu. So in this right here, there is the menu button. We're going to click on that and you'll see the source information. It says detailed signal info. And here we have, it's HDR, it's 4K, 30 hertz frame rate, standard YouTube fare, right? Okay, so that's the Sony. Samsung should be filmmaker mode, which it is, and it should be on static. Its most accurate mode, everything is 50, that's its best mode, static, yep, warm 2. Okay, so this is Samsung's most accurate mode, and since it has been calibrated by our friend Sammy Prescott, pretty confident it's good to go. And also obviously my Sony barely has, I don't know, almost 100 hours since I got it, so it's close to stable, but you know, we'll keep on running it and it will continue to get firmware updates, I hope. So filmmaker mode, which is my most accurate setting that Sammy also calibrated on the LG G3. Everything is correct. Expression enhancer is off, peak brightness is high, dynamic tone mapping is off. So this is LG's most accurate mode as well. And on YouTube TV, it looks very similar, right? I don't see any brightness differences. And of course, if I hold this too long, all the TVs will start to dim. So whenever Jennifer is free, she could be free to come on to comment how brightly she graded. I think she said some scenes were 4,000 nit grade. So that's kind of cool. So let me see. Let's go through this. Oh, here's one that maybe because of the specular highlights. Okay, so let's pause right here to see if the Sony tone mapping, gradation preferred or not, makes a difference. Oh, it's on brightness preferred. As if that makes a difference. Let's put it back in gradation preferred. Nope, no change. And since we're very sensitive to luminance changes, even a subtle shift in brightness, I would notice it and I would tell you guys, I see no change. So we'll continue to play that as I get to your questions real quick. And thank you again, Jennifer, for letting us use your content for this HDR streaming on YouTube via Chromecast HDMI. So while we're here on the YouTube channel, you guys have any questions? Otherwise, we're going to move on. And yes, BatTech, S95C is in static mode. Active would be brighter. So actually, you know what? Let's see you guys in a bright room. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's bring it to static or active, and let's see what happens in this scene, because this is a great scene to do that. This is relatively light controlled room, right? There's a little bit of backlight, ambient lighting behind my TV that's set to low, so you guys can kind of have context as to the TVs, but there is no brightness in that room. I have blackout curtains all around. I could just barely see it, but the lights here is not affecting the room in there at all. So the room would be representing a dark room, almost a man cave, right? So let's say you're in a brighter room and you want to use the brightest possible. On the S95C, we would bring it to static, from static to active, because this maintains most of the color accuracy, but then it hops up a bit of that brightness that we all love. Okay, and then normally I like to bring contrast enhancer a bit up to low. So this will be a little bit brighter, and this is not a great scene because the blacks are a little bit, it looks kind of washed out, right? So let me choose something else. Give it a bit more color. You know what? Let's go to the last one. Here we go. There we go. That should be better. Actually, you know what? Let's go to the previous one. This one might be brighter even. And of course, a commercial. I'm surfing with you guys. All right, we're gonna jump through this commercial in like 4 seconds. I guess YouTube's gonna pay its bills, right? Okay, so let me get something with a little bit of color in it. Here we go. Okay. And I will adjust the exposure to match the S95C. Okay, so the S95C is clearly the brightest one here. Now, on the Sony, how do you want it? What do you need to do to get it up there, right? So let's go to the menu. Of course, maintaining, well, let's make sure. So that's the source, HDR on YouTube TV. So let's maintain that as much color accuracy as possible, like the Samsung, but add some punch. So what you do is you go into brightness, and we're hoping brightness preferred does that, right? Literally nothing. So I'm going to keep it, let me just do brightness preferred, only because psychologically you guys will have that on. But the reality is it's probably going to be advanced contrast enhancer. So low, medium, high. Apparently, contrast enhancer does not work. I'm going to take a pause here. Sony, if you're watching, let me know. Is contrast enhancer supposed to do anything with HDR? I'm going to have to talk to Pablo, the Sony engineer. That's right. So you know what? I have it on. It does nothing, right? Absolutely nothing right now. I mean, it's not like I would use it normally, but I would use it if I wanted to get it brighter. So contrast enhancer as well as gradation, brightness preferred, nothing. Luminance, I know that does something. So yes, see, you go to medium, takes the brightness down, but high is its most accurate HDR mode, so you always have it at high anyway, right? So let's go to color, maybe live color. Oh, well, live color is on low, so accuracy is off. Hey, guess what? It does nothing. So I know YouTube compresses color, but live color right now does absolutely nothing. You know, it wasn't working yesterday. You guys remember this? Wasn't it working before, right? I remember that lobster tail. I'm going to have to blame the firmware update. You know what, Sony, your firmware update is disappointing. So clarity is not going to do anything with brightness. Okay, so right now in this firmware, I'm getting nothing out of the Sony. Let's go to the G3. The G3 is very easy, right? We go to Cinema Home, and it'll pretty much match the Samsung brightness, especially if dynamic tone mapping on is going to really hit. And dynamic tone mapping is on, dynamic contrast is on low. I like expression enhancer on detail because it gives me a bit of that punch. Okay. Well, you know what? The Samsung is still a little bit brighter. So for those like, oh, you're being unfair to the LG, I think I will take up brighter, the expression enhancer to bright. And yeah, there we go. Okay. It should be a match now. Okay, so the G3 is a little bit brighter. The Samsung is still the brightest in the scene, and obviously it's static. So, you know, rather than be accused of, hey, you hold static, you know, the G3 is so aggressive, blah, blah, blah. And the Sony, at this point of the firmware, I am unable to make the Sony brighter in any of its brightness modes. And so, thank you, Baptech. Here we go. Yeah. Definitely, Samsung is the brightest. I'll just pause it real quick. I'll just exposure so you guys can see. It's not that the Samsung is losing detail. It's just so bright that my exposure appears to be overexposing it. So if I take the detail down just a little bit, you guys will see. Wow, the Samsung's pretty bright. And actually, some of that detail is slightly clipped. So it is definitely pushing that detail up, but my solution for many of you, and this is where Classy and I disagree. He says contrast should always be at 100. I believe, or at 50, I think its best contrast setting is actually closer to 45. And that brings back a lot of it. You know what, in this case, it has to be in static mode then. Even that, being in dynamic mode, it gets bright. Maybe the contrast enhancer screwed it up. Okay, it's contrast enhancer. So let's take off contrast enhancer because it bothers me that's clipping the details a bit. So the Samsung without contrast enhancer, let's see how bright they are. And it's still slightly brighter, the Samsung, just slightly. I mean, you don't buy a TV based on this, by the way. But this is why I really like the Samsung S95C or S90C. 77-inch, very similar performance, if not identical. It's very easy to tune. On the G3, you have to go to Cinema Home, play with contrast enhancer, get it to brightness preferred, or whatever, expression enhancer to brightness, dynamic tone mapping on. On the Samsung, you stay in its one mode, filmmaker mode, and you go from static to active, and you're pretty much done, right? So although it kind of brute forces, but it's a good and accurate brute force in my opinion. On the Sony, you are stuck with this image for now. Neither, and we'll have to be very careful here, HDR streaming on YouTube via Chromecast HDMI, the gradation preferred, brightness preferred, or off, all look the same to me. And this is an HDR signal, as you saw, the Sony sees as HDR, but the tone mapping doesn't work in terms of those different settings. And the contrast enhancer also does not work. And the live color, because there's color here, did not work for this content. So let me see what question you guys have here. The G3 is too green. You know what? The G3, my G3 does have that touch of green. Lisa has a great question. FOMO, maybe you forgot to restart the TV. I did, the TV did, it was off, but I am here to please. And not only that, maybe the native app will work differently. So here's our chance, right? Let me turn off the TV. And we are going to run this exact same content with a native app. So I'm ready for you guys. So let's compare native, same, oops, let's just stop right here. Because I do like that. And we'll just pause there so that it doesn't, well, we'll make it so that ASBL doesn't hit it, strike. Okay, so TV's off. Let's turn the TV back on. We're going to do the same content using the YouTube native app and see if those three different setting modes change the color, brightness, tone mapping at all. And in the meantime, while it turns on, let's see, we got some super chats here. And okay, that's Samuel Hooks. And again, I'm going solo, guys, so bear with me as I take my time with you guys. Here we go. Should I upgrade to the A95L from the Samsung QM8? Okay, let's talk about your use case. I may suggest you go to A95K. I may suggest you go to the S95C because you're used to the Samsung look, or even the G3. So it might be too early. So Samuel, let me know what your use case is, and I'll answer that question. But definitely it's very use case specific. We're not going to address gaming because it's a whole other thing. I'm so tempted to see what Starfield looks like in all these three TVs because I have one Xbox. The problem is splitting the Xbox. Image quality is going to be a bit different. So we won't be doing, I don't know. I'm still debating. It's going to take a lot of time. Okay, brightness preferred on Sony is now by Samsung. Let's see what native native app does. So we are on the HDMI, so let's go straight to YouTube native, right? So I'm clicking the YouTube button right here on the Sony. Let's see what happens. All right, so Sony goes to its native, and we are going to see, so this is the Sony, wait, let me show you, see Sony remote, right? Let's do, here we go, OLED demo, this is where we're at. Let's see here, 202, YouTube, your ads. All right, 5 seconds to go. Let's skip this ad. We're almost there, and boom. Okay, where are we here? Okay, 202. Again, thank you, Jennifer Gala, making this happen. Okay, let's pause it. Boom, boom. Okay, let's see if the Sony preferred gradation, blah, 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 works with internal apps. Wait, before I do it, predictions. Does tone mapping work with its native app? We already saw it didn't work with Chromecast external streaming. And let me add this right now. Let's see, internal app. I'm going to do it real quick so we don't have any confusion. So, HDR. L. Internal app. Okay, there we go. So you guys aren't confused. So the A95L is doing the internal app. All right, let's see what happens. Wait, what is your prediction? Let's see, what are you guys predicting? Oh, no predictions. I predict nothing will happen. Nothing happened. So internal app, whether it's off, gradation preferred, brightness preferred, I'm getting nothing. So let's see, what about contrast enhancer? Here we go, it's off. Maybe it'll work. Yep, nothing. All right, I thought it was working before my update. Live color is off. Maybe live color, get some more of that brown. Absolutely nothing. No change at all. So it appears that whether it's an internal app, YouTube, or external on Chromecast, it is exactly the same. So let me move it back so we're all on the same page. Let's switch back to HDMI. Boom. There we go. Take this off. Okay. Now, that's just YouTube, regular YouTube. We are going to look at sports HDR. And I think this is one that deserves a lot of talk. This is one that surprised me greatly. But before we jump into that, let me click play so you guys enjoy this. And then get to your questions. See what you guys got. I'm going to try to manage this all at the same time. Now, this is not to say the Sony doesn't look great, but clearly it needs more firmware updates because these adjustments, whether it's tone mapping or contrast enhancement or live color, currently not working on, at least on the Chromecast YouTube TV app or the internal app. So FYI, obviously it should work later after a firmware update. Hey Sandra, thanks for the super chat. Movie watching and streaming UHD Blu-ray, the 3D look. Yeah, 3D, it's not coming back. But OLED does have that 3D pop. I'm going to turn this up a little bit for you guys, this exposure. Okay. All right. There you go. Just making sure it's playing. get in your questions. Don't send the TV back. Not yet, because it does do a few things uniquely that the A95K didn't do. And it's not just the audio, right? Yeah, why would anyone buy an LG unless it's an MLA variant? Because they don't want it too bright in their bedrooms. That would be why. The MLA definitely is bright, but for most people at night, the MLA does, the headroom is not needed. So, but then why get the G3, right? You get the C3 or the B3, but not always needed. And or if you only watch an SDR and it's like old TV shows and you're in a dark room, MLA doesn't really do anything. Okay. Get a chance to check out A95's duality creation compared to A95K. So unfortunately, Iran, it's so hard to do without the A95K here. Obviously, it's going to work, but my A95K is at home. I'm in the studio, so I cannot do a side-by-side. Alas, yeah. Hey, buddy, thank you for the super chat. Will the settings work in the other picture modes? We'll see. We will definitely see. We will now explore we'll explore those things in other picture modes. Well, you know what? Let's try it right now. So let's go to, let's pause it right here and let's check it out. So let me get your super chat back up. Per your request, buddy, we'll do it right now. So let's change picture modes. It's at professional and let's go to standard, right? Because hopefully standard does something special here. So we're at standard mode. Oops. There we go. Standard mode. Okay, let's see. Predictions. Will these tone mapping features actually change anything? Let's see. Brightness, off, nothing. But the test is not complete. Actually, no, let me leave it at gradation preferred, because that would be where I'd leave it regardless. And in standard mode, I'll just leave that as default because that's how it comes in. But the peak luminance does work. Let's go to color. Live color is on medium. Let's see. Low, off. Nope, no change. Go back to default. How about color temperatures on neutral? Yes, that works. It's very subtle, but yeah, definitely go to expert. Changes it. So you're not going to leave it an expert. So it does not work in standard. Let's try. Let's try vivid. Woo, that's bright. So brightness preferred. Nothing. Doesn't change at all. And let's go down to advanced contrast enhancer. Medium, low, off. Nope. So it looks for sure, it's safe to say, regardless of the mode, the Sony's various settings right now is just not working. Well, those settings, right? The tone mapping settings and the like. So let me just put it back to professional so I don't get complaints. Oh, the Sony's not in the right mode. Okay, so a lot of my testing is going to be limited. All right. Okay, let's see another questions. Then we'll move on to the next one. Ah, not 3D. I mean motion. So the Sony Motion, it looked good, but the problem is I need like real content where the motion is questionable. So, oh, like this one. Actually, here's one. Let's put this back on. I changed the speed to 50% so it doesn't move so fast, but let's put it back to full speed and see, because I thought I saw stutter there. So let's see what happens. In testing, looks pretty good. In my motion testing using the Spears and Munsil disc, I thought the Sony was the most stutter-free without adding additional soap opera of the two TVs, right? So the three TVs compared on the benchmark disc, Spears and Munsil, 24p content, I thought the Sony had the best setting for me. So I definitely prefer the Sony Motion, but the A95K may also have great motion as well. So I would not buy the A95L just because of the motion. That's the thing, right? The question right now is, why get the A95L if the A95K may do some things identically, or the G3 S95C may do what you need better? And so we're exploring that today. Yep, we're going to do different images. We're going to do Netflix next. Actually, that's it. Let's do it. So let's turn on Netflix, because maybe a different app will do the trick. This scene right here, the one that Classy and I were talking about yesterday, right? Okay, so, and boom, there it is. You know what? I think I lost it. Let's do that one more time. Here we go. This is Netflix external app, Chromecast. I'll change my title in a second once I get that part. Right there. Okay. Okay, so this is the scene we're talking about, and I know it's gonna brighten or not brighten shortly. So let me adjust. Brightness appears to be identical so far, but let me adjust this. So the G3 is the brightest of the three right now. With the S95C and the Sony, very similar, but they may have started dimming already. So I'm going to run this one more time to see. So right here, the Sony is definitely dimmer in HDR, but we will make adjustments. G3 is the brightest, and the S95C and the Sony are identical. So it depends on the scene for sure. Now, let me play with those settings right now while it's paused. So let's see. Boom, boom, picture settings. Isn't brightness preferred? Predictions, does it work? Nothing. Nothing. No, I blame this definitely on the firmware. I remember it was working. I couldn't assume that it would stop working, right? But I remember it was working. Advanced contrast enhancer. This always screws up the picture. Yeah, nothing. Live color. Let's see here. Nope, nothing. So I'm sure Sony's watching this. Let me see what questions you guys have. Okay, so Classy, does this answer your question that even with a different external app, in this case Netflix, and let me make sure it's the right Netflix. Oops. Let's go to, this one is also a great scene that's coming up next. I love this next scene. Since, while we're here, right, I was going to compare and show you guys this scene. Right here. So this is a great scene. So all three TVs have similar specular highlights. So the Sony is not as aggressive when it's a small specular highlights, in case you're wondering. And in this case, they all look very similar. But the Sony it feels like it's a touch darker, doesn't it? Doesn't mean that it's inaccurate or accurate. It's so close, it's definitely preference. So in this scene, let me make sure I have the right HDR streaming. Oops, definitely not. Internal app, take that off. We are in HDR streaming. Nope. Why does it keep on popping up? Well, I'll just type a new one. Okay. Netflix HDR streaming via Chromecast. So those of us joining us know what we are watching. There we are. Okay, so. Okay, let me check the questions. And if this dims over time, guys, that's just what it is. It's, well, you know, it's a good test. Let's just hold it and see which one dims first. Why not? Firmware borked? I would say so. But again, these things change. All the TVs get better over time, we hope. But this is, you know, literally the first firmware, so I'm sure they're fixing something. Which TV is better for gaming? We always get one of these. It's always safe to go with either the Samsung or the LG. The Sony, we don't know yet because it's so early. I honestly would not trust the A95L for gaming until more firmware updates come through, right? We just don't know what's happening. You're safe for the G3, but it depends what you need. If you need HDR10 plus gaming, only the S95C has it between the two. If you need 4K 144, arguably S95C has it. Whether it works consistently, has dropouts, is another matter. Are you a PC gamer? But if you are a PS5 gamer, in the long term, the Sony A95L should look better, right? Oh, lights turn off. Lights turned off. Utilities shutting things down. Okay, so what we got here. When changing settings, so let's see. Let's see, let me go up to see what you're saying. So, I think we tried different picture modes already and did not work on any picture mode. The settings are off. I'm not allowed to, is it locked? Kasi, explain yourself, my friend. And so this takes us to a different question. There's definitely an imbalance of settings if this is an HDR. So, well, we would know because Sony will let you know if it's an HDR, right? They have their detailed signal info, and yes, Sony recognizes it as HDR10, and it is an HDR. I set it specifically on the Chromecast setting to HDR. I disabled Dolby Vision. I will enable Dolby Vision to compare these same scenes for you guys to see, because I did want to show you something shortly, but we'll be in HDR for now. That allows me to leave the Samsung S95C on so you guys can compare. The A95L shouldn't dim so soon. It has a heatsink. So William, this is why I wanted to do this stream. Let's put Netflix aside, because one reason why many of you want the A95L is for the brighter sports that I saw in my last live stream with Brian, right? And it was brighter, but then after 5 or 10 minutes, it dimmed immediately. We're talking vivid mode, right? So in scenes like this where it's not super bright, it actually holds on to it. I mean, all the TVs still look similar to where they were before, right? I don't see a lot of dimming, but in vivid mode, where the Sony is very uncomfortable, it did hit its brightness as promised, but after about 10 minutes, let's watch it right now. So I think we're done with HDR streaming. I mean, it looks great, but so let's have a conclusion here. The conclusion for me is this. If you're getting this TV, any of these TVs for Netflix HDR streaming with a Chromecast or YouTube TV, there is no reason to pay more for the A95L. Get the A95K, get the G3, or the S95C. Get the cheaper, larger one. Now, if you need QD OLED Sony, that's 77 inches, then you cannot get the A95L, right? You have to, I'm sorry, you cannot get the A95K, right? You have to get the Sony A95L. If you need 77 inches and you like the Sony, what is that? The reality creation, their upscaling, their motion. That is the use case right now. The A95L, 77 inch, you want Sony A95K image quality on these contents streaming YouTube, but you cannot get it on the A95K because it's too small. That's when you get the A95L. Otherwise, the content we've seen so far, there is no reason to get the A95L on the smaller sizes because the G3 and the Samsung does it so well, but they're both calibrated. The benefit of the A95L is it gets you there without the cost of a calibrator, but then for the price difference, you could probably still get a calibration done and it will be brighter with things working out of the box right now on the G3 and the S95C. So something to think about, but most people are not going to pay for a calibrator. So the A95L without a calibrator will end up looking like this, which is very close in terms of everything else acceptable to me. Now, purists will want perfect calibration, but for me, the colors are great, matching the G3 and S95C very well. But we're talking, I get right now, I would 65-inch size, I get either the G3 or the S95C plus calibration for myself. Probably the G3 because the subtleties, who cares? It's Netflix, right? It's YouTube. We'll get into sports right now because I think this is an important discussion to have. I think Sony has a lot of work to do in terms of who this TV is for. And the G3 suddenly has dimmed a lot, did it? You know what? The best way to know if the G3 has dimmed, someone mentioned that. Let's take this off real quick. Let's reset it. Let's wait 5 seconds. And this is a great scene, right? Because you already see in these bright windows, the A95L is dimmer than the G3. Let's just freeze right here. In this scene right here, the A95L out of the box within 5 seconds, this is ABL, not ASBL. This scene is so bright that the Sony A95L chooses not to make this scene as bright as it could be, right? You hit it and you already saw A95L not as bright as the other two TVs. So if I adjust the exposure for the other two TVs, then you see how the differences, right? So not necessarily a brighter TV. This is what I'm saying, if you're watching Netflix, don't get the A95L unless you need 77-inch size, because this is Netflix via streaming, Chromecast, HDMI, and I don't, Dolby Vision. So if you watch internal, you're forced into Dolby Vision. We're going to do Dolby Vision next, and you'll see something else. But because this window is so bright, we have that issue. But if you go into the next scene, it matches the brightness once that window shrinks, right? Bright windows, the A95L does not like. Small windows, the flame still is not quite as bright. You're right, the G3 is brighter now than it was later. So let's let it run for a little bit. Let me answer your questions real quick. Yes, so the A95, so let's observe. Fire on the A95L is brighter, color volume. Let me do a quick check with my exposure meter here. S95C is the brightest. Wait, is it still on active mode? I'm constantly double checking. Wait, why is it so bright? Did I put it back on static? This is what I have to deal with. Please let it be static. No, of course it's brighter. It's on active. Okay, hey guys. So okay, and now that it's accurate, right? And let's make sure that the G3 does not have anything funky going on like brightness preferred expression enhancer. It's cinema home. See? All right. Sony, maybe not so bad. Okay, No, it's in its most accurate mode. Oh, look at that. See, this is why we have to do the stuff we do. See, this is why I have to keep on reshooting my reviews. All right, let's try this again. Let's see which one's brighter. Of course, the other two TVs were brighter. They had their brightness enhancers on. And the Sony is the brightest in HDR in its most accurate mode. But none of the enhancers work. Okay, Sony fans, you win on this one. HDR, Sony is brighter. And the detail isn't bad. It's there. So let me take a breath with all of you guys. The Sony A95L HDR in professional mode is the brightest in this scene. And I think this scene does elevate the brightness just a bit. The other two TVs in the most accurate mode is slightly less bright. Just slightly, I mean, not a lot. So let's go to the next scene. I'm not gonna cut this up later. This is why we do the live stream, right? Oh, thank you for putting up with me. All right, here we go. Okay, where are we here? Revisiting this scene. Who has the brighter specular highlights? Well, let's see here. Sony and S95C, and the G3 is just a step behind. So, but it's so subtle, I would not choose any of these TVs based on this scene alone. But the Sony and the S95C is a match, probably because it's QD OLED. And remember, the Sony is not calibrated, yet its color in the fire looks very similar, if not identical, to the other two. And this is why I'm saying, if you're just watching Netflix, you don't need that extra wide color gamut / color volume, even in these HDR scenes, because the G3 looks just as good. The only possible difference is I could say that the G3 may be slightly crushed in the shadows. So if you look in the back, right here, I'm going to turn up the exposure so you guys can see it. But right here, the G3 is just slightly darker. But you know what? In a bright room, they all look too dark. So that's just something for you guys to consider. So I'll turn up the exposure so you guys can see that. There we go. It's subtle, right? Let me see if I can answer your questions. Okay, just want to make sure. Yeah, so the Sony and the S95C, the shadow detail is very similar. You could argue the Sony is slightly lifted shadow detail, which appears to be a Sony thing. They want you to catch all of it. Once it's calibrated, though, it is likely to be more like the Samsung S95C, and the G3 is just a little bit darker. But again, if you put the G3 in Cinema Home, boom, it pumps that up, so it's not a big deal. It can be adjusted, but if you want perfect accuracy, like creator's intent, the G3 is probably going to be a bit too dark in this scene. All right. Apologies for Sony fans. Like, oh no, what happened? But again, the Sony, their currently tone mapping settings are not working. So let me try this one again. Who knows? Maybe suddenly it'll start working and it'll prove me wrong. It's on brightness preferred. Let's see if I go to gradation. Yeah, off gradation doesn't matter. I'll just leave it in gradation just in case it starts working again. It'll stay accurate. Okay. All right. Samsung, for the money, is the best choice. Mostly because you don't have to worry about Dolby Vision, not Dolby Vision. It all works on the Samsung. Whereas Sony, things look different in Dolby Vision. And we're going to have the comparison after we go through all the HDR comparisons. So any questions up to this point? So the firmware update just came out, LB, just so you know. I did update it, right? So it is out. I updated it, and it appears to have broken the HDR tone mapping and enhanced contrast, the contrast enhancer feature, and live color. So Sony, I'm sure, knows about it. They're going to send another firmware update. So 1 second. I'll be right back, guys. I'll take some of these messages real quick. Gotta love these live streams. I'm back, checking audio. Sorry about that. It's like someone at the front door. I had to get that. Apologize. All right. Okay, so let's move on to sports real quick. This will be HDR in vivid picture mode because we want to make sure that for those who are watching sports, in their brightest mode, does the Sony continue to do what we hope it will do? So I'm going to turn all the TVs into its most vivid mode next. And let's do that real quick. Nothing like the herd on YouTube TV. And yes, I will switch to vivid mode. We're not there yet, but I will. Okay. So, but let's make sure I catch all your questions first before I switch everything over. What do you mean nobody's watching sports these days? On Saturday I was watching college football. I know people were watching the US Open, and then you had NFL Sundays. Come on, Soros. You don't watch sports at all, really? I mean, that's why people need it in bright mode. So it's not for everyone. I agree, you know. Why is brightness preferred for sports? Mostly because if you're in a bright room, you want the TV to be as bright as possible to cut through the glare of all the windows or whatever. If you're in a dark room, you don't need brightness preferred. But this is for people, most people who are in mixed use rooms, they do need that brightest OLED they can get. And we're just going to see. If it doesn't apply to you, don't worry about it. Or maybe SDR gaming in vivid mode, right? We got a super chat here. Thank you, Ahmad Doshan. I live in Oman, and there isn't any calibration services here. I can't get over how green the LG is, and I can't stand how Samsung is oversaturated out of the box. It sounds like the A95L is for you, my friend. A95L makes sense to me. I agree. And again, then the question is, if you don't need 77-inch, you might want to consider the A95K. If you need the 77-inch, yeah, you got to pay the money. But absolutely, I do like the A95L out of the box. It looks great. I wouldn't need to hire a calibrator either. The match is so good. Another super chat here. Thank you, Samuel Hooks. Is the QM900A brighter than 900C and A95L? I don't have 900A next to 900C, but I can tell you 900A was not bright last year. As a matter of fact, it was no brighter than my Hisense U8H. It was very similar. The 900C is brighter, I believe. I didn't have it to compare directly with the 900A, but I was not impressed by the 900A's brightness last year. And the S95C that compared to the 900C, the 75-inch, I think 900C, we had 85-inch 900C, and we had the 77. It was a 77-inch S95C compared to the 85-inch 900C. Their brightness were very similar. So 900C is bright, but you got to get into vivid mode to really take advantage of it. If you're in standard mode or just regular movie mode, it's not any brighter than the S95C. But it's not that much brighter than the 900A that's worth upgrading, by the way. It would be for things like uniformity, you know, you have all the vertical banding issues, then you would upgrade. But otherwise, hold on to your 900A. It's just not worth it. And Lisa, I watched tennis. It was awesome, wasn't it? What a surprise! The women's U.S. Open, right? Okay, let me go through all these questions, see if there's anything interesting. Okay, so let's get into the sports mode real quick. So on the Sony, we'll put it on Vivid. This is Sony's brightest, right? Just so you guys know. Why is it on Vivid? Because I would like it to be in its brightest, just to see first what it looks like, how it compares, and more importantly, does it hold on to that brightness, right? So dynamic mode on the Samsung, and the LG G3, where'd the remote go? Ah, there it is. Also in Vivid. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to run it in Vivid mode for a bit, and hopefully, or I'll just pause it. Well, actually, you know what? I'll let it run just a bit, and I'm going to shrink the screen size so I don't get hit, or rather, maybe I'll just cover it a little bit so that, you know, I don't get in trouble with Colin. And so my face will be a little bit larger, right? And then maybe we'll shrink it just a touch. And then we'll check back in 10 minutes. But as you can see, the brightness are all very similar, but still not as bright as the, oh wow, let me turn down. And again, it had a bit, so the S95, so the G3 is definitely the brightest. The S95C is behind the G3, and the A95L is behind the S95C. There you go. Okay. Ah, there's the remote. For a second, I thought I misplaced it. Okay. So in the meantime, while we wait for the herd to get to see how long it will hold on to its vivid mode brightness, I'll answer your questions. Yeah, there we go. That should do it, right? Just enough to peek out there for you guys to see. Actually, I'll put myself on top, and then there we go. That should work better, right? And HDR vivid mode. Now, while we're here, as you guys are watching this, right, I have to tell you that SDR vivid mode is significantly dimmer than, and we're going to compare its vivid mode on its internal app. So the YouTube TV on the A95L is SDR. It's not HDR. On the Chromecast app, I'll show you, it's getting an HDR feed, right, as you can see. But if you watch YouTube TV on the internal app, which I have, and I'll show you in a second, you guys can see, it's a huge drop in brightness. Even though I have it on vivid mode and all that good stuff, the Sony A95L native internal app, YouTube TV, SDR, is simply not bright. You need to get Chromecast via HDMI to get the Sony brighter, right? And so what I noticed when I was watching the NFL yesterday is after about 10 minutes, the A95L noticeably dimmed in the content. I want to make sure they don't catch. The YouTube sensors don't jump in and start shutting it down, right? So hopefully you guys can see it peeking out right there. And A95L is in the center, S95C on the left, G3 on the right. All of them are in their vivid picture mode, HDR. Feeding via, actually, let me type this in. HDR Sports on Chrome, on YouTube TV, Chromecast HDMI. Okay. So when you guys are watching sports, streaming, YouTube TV has the most selection. That's why I chose it. It looks bright, but even though it pops at the beginning, after 10 minutes, it will start to dim a little bit. And ultimately, it feels like the brightness ends up being more similar. Oh, you can see it already. It's starting to dim, right? The center, the football field right there. And I could, here, I'm going to have to, SB, I cannot agree more. For sports watching, the G3 continues to be the king, in my opinion. YouTube TV, all that good stuff. Sony's low bit rate upscaling, it's not so much better if you need the brightness, because it feels like the G3 has better contrast too. So we're talking, I'm going to freeze this right now, and I'll show you. It's not just a contrast. It feels that the way both TVs, so you know what? Let me shrink myself. I think this is a good place to pause it for you guys. All right, there we go. Okay, so it feels like it's easier to read the letters, the words, everything on the G3 and the S95C than it is. Well, I would actually prefer the S95C. It feels like I get better contrast, because on the Sony, I would want to change the contrast, right? I would want to use contrast enhancer. And so let's try that right now on YouTube TV. Maybe it'll work on YouTube TV. So please surprise me, Sony. And again, these things are not written in stone. This is definitely a firmware bug. Brightness preferred. Gradation, yeah, no improvements at all. Yeah, advanced contrast enhancers on high. I'll just change. Nope, no change. All that, make sure that's all up on high. Sharpness at 90, that's default, by the way. Okay, so if you guys need a sports TV, if it's both sports and movie watching, 77-inch A95L is fine, but the sports is compromised on the A95L if it's HDR sports. Now, right, if this makes a difference, remember I'm watching via Chromecast HDMI. Let's go to the native version of this same content. Hopefully I can get to it. Okay, this is native YouTube TV on the Sony. And, oops. Where I'm at, 132.39. Okay. Close enough. Oh, it doesn't say anything. So the video source analytics does not work when you're using an internal app, but it's SDR, because if you look at the settings, it will say SDR mode. So if you go to brightness, you go down, I think it says somewhere. Yeah, see, the brightness preferred HDR tone mapping does not work. And right here, peak luminance, it's on high, but it does say SDR. So the YouTube TV app, internal app on the Sony, is SDR, and it feels like there's a slight drop in that impact, that dynamic punch. So for sports watchers, like, this is more important than just regular streaming. Don't spend more money on the A95L. I think you'll do better with the G3 or the S95C. All right, let's see what questions you have here. HDR Vivid mode, and I'm going to add that. This is on internal app. Okay. I'm just going to make sure I make these notes so I don't forget. So the other two TVs, let's put this up here. There we go. The other two TVs are HDR, YouTube TV, Chromecast HDMI, SDR Sports, YouTube TV A95L. Okay. However, there's actually a way for the Sony A95L to be brighter, or at least as bright as the G3, and hold on to that brightness a little bit longer. And you guys will be shocked, but it's actually to enable Dolby Vision on the Chromecast, which was quite a surprise to me, actually. So, turn this down a bit. So the Chromecast, if you enable Dolby Vision, suddenly you get Dolby Vision on the, and yes, I know they're going to start to dim because it's a static image. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to turn off the S95C, and you guys will be able to see, actually, you know what? I can leave, no, I don't have the YouTube TV internal app on the S95C active right now. So I will turn off the S95C, and then you will see the Sony. I'm going to leave the exposure as is so that you can see the difference in brightness once I switch to Dolby Vision Vivid, which is shockingly bright to me. Okay, so all right, so let's go to Dolby Vision real quick. And I'll jump to your questions shortly as we activate Dolby Vision. Well, in case you guys wanted to know, this is how you enable Dolby Vision or disable Dolby Vision. Settings, display, go down to dynamic range, it's at HDR. We're going to enable Dolby Vision. It takes a while for the handshake, so we'll just see what happens. Okay. Good question. I'll get to that. Let me take this off. Okay. And, oops. Okay, Zakasaurus says, I'm afraid that the ASBL will completely destroy the game mode, Sony again. That could be it. Maybe that's why they're doing Dolby Vision Gaming, because, okay, let's go back to this real quick, and we'll do a comparison you guys can see. Well, yeah, why is this Sony so dark? It's probably in the wrong mode. So I'm going to put it on Dolby Vision Vivid. Photo. What is that? Okay, something screwed up on my brightness here. Brightness preferred. Oh. Huh. I'm going to turn it on and off the TV. It could be a handshake issue. The Sony shouldn't be that dim. So the Dolby Vision Vivid on the Sony is incredibly bright. As a matter of fact, it's slightly brighter than the G3, and it holds on to that brightness. So assuming the firmware didn't, well, take that away, right? That was impressive to me, but then the question is, now you're going to have to use a external streamer like the Chromecast, capable of Dolby Vision, and then you would watch YouTube TV, Dolby Vision enabled, Dolby Vision in Vivid mode, and then you would have the super bright sports you wanted without the dimming. So is there something about Dolby Vision that stops the dimming? Maybe, but then they're one firmware away from maybe changing that, so we'll see. All right, turn the Sony back on. And the handshake is going through a splitter, so that's why it's like there's a struggle right now. Rank the TVs. Right now, okay, so here's a great question. Let me put this in. Gamer SS, rank the TVs. I will rank the TVs after I get this Sony up and running, because this is just not acceptable right now. I think I'm going to have to redo the handshake. It's just one of those days. Okay. Why can't they not get HDMI perfect? Okay, rank the TVs. So right now, it depends on your use case. If you are just streaming, like HDR streaming, Netflix, a little bit of Dolby Vision, lots of sports, just all-around content, there is no reason to get the A95L unless you're going for a 77-inch and you want that QD OLED and color accuracy out of the box, because you don't want it to get it calibrated, because once you get the G3 calibrated, the price is very close to the A95L. I like the A95L for all of its features as well. So for many people who either don't have a calibrator, can't afford it, or I'm sure you can afford it with the price of A95L, but just want to get out of the box, let it go, then the A95L is fine. But just know that it's not as bright as you may think. For streaming, the G3 is brighter, and right now, after the firmware, definitely Vivid mode is not working. So I'm just like, I don't know what the heck's happening here. This is a huge, huge problem. Let me turn off the TV. You know what? Let me try to directly connect the YouTube TV onto the Sony, because this shouldn't be happening at all. And it's likely that this is a firmware struggle with Sony right now. We'll do a direct connection. So there's no splitter. The Chromecast is going directly into the Sony right now. And I'm going to turn off the Sony, turn it back on, or let's just go to home, turn it off, make sure it resets the handshake. At this point, the A95L, its biggest reason for existence is 77-inch size, QD OLED Sony, color accuracy, no calibration needed, all that good stuff. Okay, if you look at 55 and 65-inch, you should look at the A95K. Yes, I know the low color saturation issue was an issue on my A95K, but I'm watching at home right now. That's content was specifically called to my attention. I didn't even know it was an issue. And for most people, the S95C or the G3, it's going to be bright, punchy, and it comes in a 77-inch size. So the A95L, right now, it could still be the benchmark king of TVs once we get to the shootout, but this is why this stream is specific to people who watch just HDR streaming. You're not watching the highest quality 4K content and so forth. That's for another discussion, because many of you just throw this on and watch a lot of YouTube, right? All right, so let's make sure I have HDMI 1 on. And this is a problem. Dolby Vision Vivid is definitely. So let me just turn up the exposure so you guys can see how dim it is. I don't know what the heck's happening here. me try to change it to another. Ah, there we go. Okay. Ah, thank God. It keeps on defaulting to photo mode. Okay. Let's stop this. All right. Excellent. Okay. Just so you guys know, these TVs are not designed for me to be swapping using a splitter, all this stuff. I mean, we're pushing these HDMI ports to the limit, right? So cannot blame the Sony sometimes when the handshake's off. It's just I push these TVs hard. Okay, much better. All right, let's make sure we have the right mode. Dolby Vision Vivid, yes. This is sports. Let's turn that off. And the LG is also in Vivid. Okay. Okay. All right. So the Sony has excellent skin tone in Dolby Vision Vivid. I know a lot of you are laughing, but it's brighter than the G3. It's got, so it looks, just everything looks great on the Sony in Vivid mode for sports. And so this is the exception, right? I'm going to pause it right here. Everything that I complained about the Sony in HDR or SDR is fixed in Dolby Vision Vivid mode for sports watching. So, ranking the TVs, Sony A95L has the best Dolby Vision Vivid sports mode via HDMI Chromecast. You cannot access Dolby Vision Vivid Sports for internal YouTube TV. You have to go via the HDMI through an external streamer that has Dolby Vision. Whew. You see the problem with use cases? I would watch this now, so we're going to watch and see which one dims first, right? So we're going to let it run for a while, but at the end of the day, and I don't want it to have static dimming, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it run. Some images moving about because sports is like that. Let me shrink this a bit. And then, all right. So this will allow you guys to see a little bit of Colin, but more importantly, the brightness and everything, right? Bring this out of the way. There we go. So we're going to let it run for a little bit just to see which one ends up. Oh yeah, the NFL is going to nail me for this. So let's make sure we block most of that. Okay. Dolby Vision Vivid mode via streamer like Chromecast for sports watching, nails it easily. Natural skin colors, I mean, everything you guys expected out of the Sony A95L for sports with the reality creation and all that good stuff, it's happening. Only via Vivid Dolby Vision. HDMI, you cannot access on an internal app. Now let's see in the next 10 minutes or so if it dims, because this is my biggest problem with Vivid HDR, regular HDR. After 10 minutes, it slowly dropped, and then it was very similar to A95K. Okay, so let me jump into your questions right now. See what you guys got for me. And if I missed your super chat, I apologize. I'll start scrolling up, just in case. Okay, so, oh, wait. C3 is out of business. They better drop the price. I was looking for... Okay, no other owners are having issues with the firmware update. So maybe it's not the firmware update. I mean, is it possible? So thank you, Classy, for that. So maybe the tone mapping isn't working at all. Let me try it again. Because for sure, mine is not working right. You guys saw that no matter what my content is, no matter what my source is, it does not matter. Okay, so Dolby Vision Vivid. So maybe I have a bad TV, right? And that's possible too. I'm gonna have to call Best Buy and yeah. Oh, wait. Something changed. Nope, I thought it did. But no, it didn't. it was the source. So my tone mapping does not work. My enhanced advanced contrast enhancer is not. It is working. Okay. So advanced contrast enhancer is working in Dolby Vision. It doesn't help a lot of you who are not watching on the Dolby Vision HDMI. If you're watching native, it does not work. But it is working. Let me try, not this one. Let me try the tone mapping again. Okay, and tone mapping shouldn't work, by the way, because it's Dolby Vision, so that makes sense. I have no arguments about that. But advanced contrast enhancer does work in Dolby Vision mode. And okay, and it looks great. So I don't understand. Maybe they're only watching native apps via HDMI, and I put it through port number 1, so I don't have to worry about having the gaming stuff on or not. So it could be I have a bad TV. That's quite possible. So I'm going to play with it some more, and I'll post some updates. Otherwise, if it continues to be an issue, I'm just going to replace it, and we'll see what happens. But it's too bad because it looks great otherwise, right? And I'm looking at the brightness. So far, it's holding on to that brightness. And it continues to be ever so slightly brighter than the G3. The G3 is a touch washed out compared to the Sony. And they all have their contrast enhancer, all the stuff on. So it's not like it's accurate, right? It's just I prefer the image on the Dolby Vision Vivid over G3s. Also on Dolby Vision Vivid, by the way. Okay, let's see what questions you got. So maybe the splitter is maybe the splitter is an issue. So let's go direct into the Sony. So thumbs up for the Dolby Vision in Vivid mode. I see it's holding on to it pretty well. So maybe after 30 minutes it might change, but right now it's an issue if it's not Dolby Vision. But I will go direct into the Sony and we'll watch Netflix directly, because you guys saw on Netflix it wouldn't change, right? So let's do it direct right now and see what happens. Oh, the things we do. And if you guys were wondering what splitter I'm using, for Dolby Vision, I was splitting it through the VR Varoom HDMI. And let's take this to Netflix. And it's possibly the splitter. So we're kind of troubleshooting at the same time here. I'll be right there. I'll take the place of the G3. There you go. Okay, our beloved Witcher scene. Let's try that again. Ooh. One more time. And yes, I will change it back to professional mode. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I'll turn off the G3 so it's not as distracting. And I'll move this out of the way. Okay. Okay, so let's double check. Sony sees this as Dolby Vision. Okay, so let's go to let's change it to HDR. All right, here we go. Okay, it's HDR now. Let's change the Sony back to professional mode. Okay, and let's rewind this. Okay, let me turn up the exposure. Make sure I have the right exposure for this. I'm just beating the scene to death, aren't I? Nice and bright. Okay. All right, Sony. So there is no splitter. The Chromecast is Dolby Vision disabled, is now HDR. Plug it in directly to the Sony. Now, if it has something to do with the Chromecast forcing content, it shouldn't be. It doesn't make sense because Netflix is native to HDR and Dolby Vision, and maybe Chromecast is screwing things up, right? So the question is, why is it not working? Why is tone mapping not working? Should Sony fix it? Assuming it's not working. If it is working, then it would be my splitter, which makes us reviewing TVs all the more difficult. We can't use a splitter. All right, gradation preferred. Any guesses? Will it work? Oh, wait. Okay, so no difference between brightness preferred and gradation preferred. But turning it off, I see a flicker. Slightly dimmer went off, which also doesn't make sense. But let's go to the next scene. Let's see if the next scene is a bit more complicated. So maybe this is the reason why. We'll see. Okay, in this complicated scene, they should do something, right? Brightness to gradation, no change, off, slightly dimmer. So this tells me that gradation and brightness preferred is not working, but let's go to the the contrast enhancer, right? So it's off, does not work. High, medium, low. Okay, so we could blame the Chromecast, but then on the LG, all those things are working. So Sony needs to fix this. It's inexcusable that Sony cannot make it work while the other TVs can, because they're working on the splitters, right? Active and static works on the Samsung, as you guys saw, on the LG, detail, all that stuff, brightness preferred, it all works. So we cannot be apologists for Sony in this case. And it worked on the A95K. I had to run through splitters, right? So the A95L definitely has an issue. But that is a good point, Classy, because I had to test that, and I saw turning it off caused a flicker. All right, let's see what we got here. Thank you for the super chat, Tech. Sony hired Sammy, firmware engineers from last year. Oh, the hits keep on coming. And again, this is their first firmware update. And I'm not blaming the firmware on this. Maybe it was meant to happen. Maybe it's my TV. So here's an issue for all reviewers. If we get a golden sample from Sony, it better work. Because then we can call Sony and say, hey, you sent me a sample. It didn't work. What's the deal? But when you buy it, like we all do, from Best Buy, is it you? Is it the TV? Is it the source? And this is why I like doing these live streams, right? I'm discovering these things. And this firmware literally happened this morning after my last live stream. So I hadn't had a chance to test it because I just assumed nothing would change. And a lot of things did change. But maybe the TV was meant to do this because after 100 hours, it happened, right? So I don't know if it's the firmware. I don't know if it's the TV because, you know, when a TV is meant to break, it will break regardless of the firmware. Like, remember my QN90B last year, or QN95B last year? It was a local dimming broke. It was a hardware issue. It was a firmware issue. It's just bad. New one worked great. So this could be me losing the panel lottery. So what I'm going to do is I'll continue testing it. And if nobody on the owners forums complain of this except me, definitely then I'm going to have to redo the stream. That means my TV, right? It's a lot of you are saying, and if it is my TV, there has to be a cautionary tale. It doesn't matter what brand you buy. I got Sony's flagship. If it's my TV, the QM8, it didn't happen. The S90C didn't even turn on at M-Wave. Well, here's my Sony A95L, right? So either it's the firmware, either it's my TV, or it's one or the other. And if it's my TV, that's fine. But we have to understand that when you guys buy TVs, sometimes it's just a TV. Okay, so high dynamic range pattern on the Spears and Munsil disc. Technically, this is only for streaming content, which clearly the Sony is not doing very well at all. Oh, and this wasn't even Dolby Vision. Screw that up. It was HDR streaming. So you guys are catching this right? Wait, was that Dolby Vision? No, it was definitely not. It was, and it wasn't even that. It was, this is HDR. So I'm going to type that in right now. Terrible, terrible. HDR streaming. See, this is why live reviewing TVs are so hard, but I love it because you guys are here. You guys are just walking me through this. Okay, so keep each other company. I'm going to do this because Classy asked, maybe Spears and Munsil, HDMI, no splitter. I'll just go straight through. And then we'll do a double check with the splitter and see if the same problem arises. But we'll do direct with Spears and Munsil. Let's see what happens. But I tell you, like troubleshooting, right? Are you guys glad you're not TV reviewers? Everyone's like, oh, you're so lucky, FOMO. You get these amazing TVs all the time. I'm like, really? You really want to be doing this all the time? It's not fun. Okay, found it. I mean, I got so many cables down here. I mean, you guys see, I have to memorize where every cable goes. And then sometimes something goes wrong. Maybe it's the cable, right? Maybe it's the HDMI cable. God forbid that's the case. I have to redo everything again because you don't even know. Did the cable suddenly cut out? It's only capable of 8-bit now, right? Okay, so Spears and Munsil is activated. So let's see what happens. Let's answer some of your questions while we do this. Now I'm going to change this to Spears and Munsil. Okay. All right, let's do this. And we'll be nice to Sony. We'll do it 1000 nit content. No, actually, I have to do it in 2000 nit, right? That's when brightness and all that stuff happens, right? So we will do it in 2000 nit content so that there's something for the Sony to do. And then we'll test it in 1000 nit content and 600 nit content to see maybe it doesn't work in the different grades. Right? Let's put it on slow-mo. All right, so here we are, 2000 nit content. Direct HDMI, no splitter. Okay, I'm gonna say that. HDMI, no splitter. Ha. No S95C, no G3, just me and the Sony. And classy. Okay, I'm sure you're waiting with bated breath. Before I do this, what's the vote? Will it work? Will tone mapping work on my TV? Again, it could be my TV, so let's just repeat that over and over. This may not be a Sony issue. It could be my TV unit issue. We will know. So, will it work? Will my tone mapping feature work? Will my enhanced contrast, advanced contrast enhancer work? So what does that even mean, advanced contrast enhancer? Is there a less advanced contrast enhancer? I mean, I'm just wondering. Okay, here we are, gradation preferred, all right? So it's at 2000 nit. Let's see. Nothing. Brightness preferred, gradation preferred, nothing. And this is a scene with specular highlights. And we'll change the scene, so I'll let it go faster so you guys can see. Oh, what? How about off? Okay. Off, nope. On, nope, nope. Oh, this is a good one. This one definitely, because it's such a bright scene, I know for a fact Sony does shift and gradation off. Oh, off works. Gradation and brightness do not. So I'm going to pause right here. So at least we know turning it on and off works here. But now my issue is I cannot, like, so what is it on right now? It's on brightness preferred or gradation preferred. So let's test the other one, the enhanced, the contrast enhanced, and see if that works. Oops. Okay, that does not work. So advanced contrast enhancer is still not working. Not like many of you use it, but in case you need to use it, it is not working. And brightness, shifting between brightness and gradation does not work in 2000 nit content, but turning it off does. So you can turn it off, but you don't know whether you're shifting to gradation or brightness. But it could be the grade. So let's change it to 10,000 nits. We've changed it to 10,000 nits now. And this is a great scene for this, by the way. It is exactly what the Sony needs. Okay, so 10,000 nit, slow-mo. Let's see, gradation preferred. Off. So off to on works. Brightness to gradation, no change. All right, let's go to 1000 nit content. Okay. Off. Slight, because 1000 it could do without a lot of tone mapping. That's why there's not a lot of change. Oops. Okay, so at 1000. Gradation preferred, brightness, nope. So I suspect it is definitely that there's something happening with my TV or the actual settings. It is what it is, right? I mean, I tried. It doesn't matter if it's a splitter or not then, because clearly I can turn it off and on, but the fact that I cannot shift between gradation and brightness is an issue, and advanced color and advanced contrast enhancer is not working at all. On, off, medium, high, it does not work. So in case you guys are wondering, okay. Oh, wait. Thank you for the suggestion. Let's try a TV reset. It's definitely a bug. Yeah, you know what? It definitely is a bug. Let's do the TV reset. If all else fails, reset your TV, right? Not like it's calibrated, so it doesn't matter. Well, maybe I should restart it. Let's try restarting it first, just in case. And then this is why I don't want to reset it, actually. If I reset it, it kicks out my entire Google login, and I can't do any testing at all via the native stuff, right? So I will do it after the stream. I'll give you guys an update, because then, you know, we can't do any testing, but well, maybe I'll try anyway. We'll see what happens. So let's do a restart first. Let's do the soft restart. Everyone's a comedian. Did you reset with your right hand? I did. I actually pushed the button. Well, it wasn't a reset. It's just a restart. We'll see what happens. Hold the power button 5 seconds. Okay, let's do that too, right? Let's hold the power button for 5 seconds. Is it under the TV? It's down here somewhere, right? I'm just feeling stuff around. I've never had to do this. You know what? I'll do an actual software reset, because holding down the power button just restarts it, right? But before we do that, let's see if it actually worked first, before we go through the trouble of doing a hard reset. To factory settings, I guess. Okay. Maybe it'll work. Maybe I don't have to return this TV and get an exchange. I hope not. Okay, we're going to change the brightness to 2000 just to make sure we can see, or 10,000 just to make sure we can see these changes. Okay, let's try this. It's like crowd troubleshooting. I love you all. Okay, here we are at gradation preferred. Off, that works. On. Okay, so no change in brightness. And let's go to the advanced contrast enhancer. Nope, no change there. Okay, so let's do a software. Let's do factory reset to, well, before I do that, let's see what other questions. This may cost sales. Hey, you know what? It's this TV. If all the other owners are saying they do not have this problem, more likely than not, it's my TV. But it happens, right? I mean, reviewer buys a TV. After a while, he discovers that it's his TV. Gonna go out and buy another TV, which is what I might have to do. Okay. Wait. This is customer service. Unplug it from the wall for 2 minutes. I'll do that, Scott. So before we do the software reset, I will unplug it. I agree. Let's go through the process that I tell you guys, right? This is what I tell you guys to do. I'll unplug it from the wall for 2 minutes, and then any questions you have, throw it at me and I'll answer them. All right, where's that power? Okay. All right, it's unplugged. 2 minutes. Let's see. It is 5:03 Pacific time. Wow, let's add another one. It's called Troubleshooting FOMO's A95L. All right. This is what I call wisdom of the crowds, my friends. Wisdom of the crowds. Thank you for putting up with this. It's good content. So in 2 minutes, so at 5:06, we'll do it. Oh, the hits keep on coming. Bat, super chat, thank you. Sony Master Series quality control strikes again. And to be fair to Sony, this is the first time I've ever had a Sony, any Sony, Master Series or not, have something happen like this. So, you know what? It could happen to any TV. I've had a dirty brown spot from the Hisense way back with H9F, my first Hisense review. The Vizio never turned on. Like it turned on and turned off. I kept on turning on and off, gave up. The TCL 8 series, man, it was a nightmare the first 3 months. I gave up on it. I couldn't even finish the review. That was the first mini LED. Eventually I heard it got better. And then there were not, and then the S90C at M-Wave, after Jason calibrated it, it just didn't turn on anymore. It just shut down and we could never get it to turn on. That's why you didn't see it. And today I got my A95L, possibly it is my unit. So, you know, definitely check the owners forums to see if anyone else has it. If I am the only one that has this issue, then it is what it is. And so I'm gonna have to redo this. Wait, gives me another excuse to do the live stream, right? I have to redo everything. But thank you for that, Matt. I think 1 more minute and then we will plug it in again. Oh, loving the drama. It's only drama because it's on my channel, right? Okay. Okay. Soros is like, let's pray. This is why I get it at Best Buy. I just have to drive down to the local Best Buy. With my left, there's no more left because all you guys bought it, so I can't even get a replacement. So please, let there be one available, right? Like, oh no, I gotta wait till October like normal people. Okay, Lisa, this is exciting. Let me plug it in again. 2 minutes is up. All right, so plugging it in. Whew. This is fun. Let's turn it on. Bam. Watch, it's going to say, firmware, would you like to update? And you're all going to yell, yes, update it. Well, wouldn't that happen? Not even turning on. Maybe I'm not pushing the remote hard enough. Let me check again. Did I plug it into the right power outlet? What the heck's happening here? Oh, wait, it did turn on. Yes. Okay. I was afraid it might be another S90C thing happening. All right. Let's see what happens next. Yeah, I do think it's updating. It better be updating, but it doesn't say, there's no announcement that it's updating. So let's see, let's put this up. Now my Chromecast is not sending a signal. Oh wait, not my Chromecast. It's my HDMI, it's my player. Okay. All right, so we're gonna try it one more time before I do a hard reset. We did a unplug, and this is a full power cycle restart, I guess. So we'll see what happens. Getty G, man. Don't be scared, Getty. It could be my TV, right? Remember, the S95C is only going to get cheaper, as well as the A95L. But Getty, I think I kind of scared you from this TV, right? Don't be scared off by this. I feel kind of bad. All right, let's stop right here. Here we go. Make sure it is 10,000 nits. Okay. Okay. Before I do a factory reset, we're going to see if it works. And for those that just joined us, what happened is currently my tone mapping is not working no matter what content I have, or rather I cannot shift between gradation preferred or brightness. Okay, so that's still not working, but let's check advanced contrast enhancer. Can they just call it contrast enhancer? And that is not working. Low, medium, high, it's all the same. Off, it's all the same. Yeah, okay. So let's do the, okay, let me see what other suggestions you guys have before I do factory reset. Pure white at least. Yeah, well, it's exposure. This is pretty bright because it's high brightness, so I'll give you a little bit more contrast there. Okay. Factory reset is the only hope. Let's do it. I don't do this enough, so I'm going to have to wander my way around there real quick. All right, let's see. Factory reset. Whoops, picture setting. Nope, not that. Let's try this again. Okay. Wait, is it in here? Nope. It's here, right? Somewhere? System. Is it under about? Where's the storage? No, not ambient mode. Nope. Nope. Is it here? Oh, no. Where the heck is the system reset? Or the software reset? It's under about. Thank you. I thought I was there. Couldn't find it. Okay, system. Well, let's check the update real quick. Because you never know, right? It's up to date. All right. Device name, not that. Oh, of course, it's right there. Factory reset. All right. Erase everything. All right, guys. This is it. After this, it's either going to be a return or I got lucky. So let's answer your questions. I like to address this, Iceman and Bob. So every TV, no matter how awesome it is, they have what's called a failure rate. And even if, it's so dark, let me turn this light on. And even if the failure tolerance is like 0.1%, right? I mean, that's really low in the industry. Let's say that the industry average is like 5% failure rate, and let's say a TCL is around 5%, or hisense is, and as you go up the flagship, it's down to 2%. But even if the Master Series is 0.5%, right? 0.5% of 100,000, right? That's still some, 5, right? 500, 5,000. I got one of that 0.5%. So I always tell you guys, no matter how much you pay for it, there's some poor sap who is in that tiny percentage of failure, and then they're going to go on all the forums. My TV sucks. I'm never going to buy a Master Series again. It's got to happen. Someone's going to win the lottery. Someone's going to lose the lottery. And honestly, I'm hoping that it is me who lost the lottery and nothing else, because this is not a good look for Sony. All right, let's do this. Okay, so set up basic TV. We'll skip all of that. We'll go straight to. Yeah, there's a little lag because it's still loading everything. There we go. Set up basic TV. You're connected to Ethernet, correct? Don't do what I do. Do not connect to the internet. I am the poor sap, Lisa. Thankfully, this is my job, so I do this for you. I'm taking it for the team. Except, I normally don't accept any of this stuff. You may, but I'm not going to. And definitely do not install the camera unless you have a real reason to do it. Don't do it just because it's there. My camera's still, oh, that's fancy. Look at that. Ah, already I feel the quality. All right, start to begin. Scroll down. Okay, click nothing, proceed. Next, next. Off, power saving. Skip. Next. Next. Wall mount. Skip. Auto adjust picture. Skip. Next. Gesture control. No camera, so no gesture control. Connect later. As if that will ever happen. Skip. No thanks. I'll register later. Maybe I should have registered now, right? Let them know what I really think. Checking for updates. Disable. Is this Samba an Adidas indoor soccer shoe? Disable. Accessible features. Done. Okay. Adding finishing touches. Every time I read this, I'm thinking, what is marketing thinking? Like, what's the best way to keep them engaged? All right, let's do it. It's HDMI. Boom. Okay. All right. And what the? Okay, let me turn down the volume. It's kind of creepy. I was like, where's that sound coming from? Okay. Okay, so let's start this disk over. Start fresh. So for those of you who just joined us, I did a hard reset because I am the poor sap that possibly could have gotten a TV that may have broken features like advanced contrast enhancer not working and tone mapping not working properly. So we're going to test it after a hard reset, soft reset, factory reset, latest firmware update. If it still doesn't work, then I will be swapping out this TV and have to redo the review again. But I will share with you some early conclusions from yesterday, but ultimately, I think it's still applicable if we take out all of these weird issues. So I'm going to do 2000 nits because I think that Dolby Vision. Let me disable Dolby Vision. Actually, you know what? I don't have to. I could force it. Let's make sure that this Sony doesn't see Dolby Vision, by the way. Oh. Okay, where are we? Detailed signal info. Okay. HDR10. So the Sony is seeing HDR10. I'm going to be at 2000 nits. We're making sure we're all on the same page here. And this, and we're going to go to a scene that actually works a bit better. Okay, let's try that again. The drama. What's going to happen next? I think this is a good one, right? Slow-mo. Okay. I like things with clouds because when we do these shifts and tone mapping, it's very obvious. Okay, let me turn up the exposure so you guys can see it with me. Let's share the experience. Right. Okay. And here we go. Picture mode, we'll go to professional. And see, I had my settings all set up. Now I gotta start all over again. Picture and sound, is that right? Where's my picture mode? Like, I'll just go straight to settings and then go, what was that? It's like, you know, I'm just gonna have to redo my settings page because it's so annoying. I want to go straight to the picture settings. I know, this is drawn out and killing all of us. Okay, let's get rid of all this stuff we don't need. No notification, no picture and sound. Yes, picture settings, no content type. Picture mode, yes. Brightness, yes. Power saving mode, I want to turn that off later. Don't need that. I know. Okay. All right. Where did that 12 come from? I keep on seeing that 12. Okay. And power saving mode is off. All right. Now, the moment of truth. So default. Okay, everyone. Off. Yes. So going off to gradation. Now the question is, no. Brightness preferred gradation? Nope. So let's try advanced contrast enhancer one more time. Okay. Advanced contrast enhancer, will you work? Nope, no change. Yeah, all the same. Okay, so it appears that it could be my TV. Now, not having seen how other owners are going through this, maybe it's just my TV, and it likely is. Either way, let's just start fresh. So the troubleshooting is done. There's no more troubleshooting. But I will share with you my conclusion. It doesn't change my conclusion much, and I'll tell you why. Concluding, I'm going to have to reshoot this though, unfortunately. Concluding thoughts, A95L. And it's very specific. It's use case specific, so I'm going to add that extra detail as well. Okay, so concluding thoughts on the A95L. So first and foremost, the A95L is a very good TV, QD OLED, but is it better than the A95K and is it better than the G3 and the S95C? For people who watch sports 50% of the time, meaning sports is important to you, whether it's NFL, college football, it doesn't matter. You watch YouTube TV streaming or over the air or whatever it is. You want a bright sports watching TV because you are in a bright room. So this applies to people in a bright room that needs a bright sports watching TV. The A95L in vivid mode gets bright and it quickly dims. Now that is specific to sports watching. Vivid HDR gets bright and dims. Vivid SDR gets bright and dims. But My experience with my TV is in Dolby Vision Vivid, it's brighter. The only time it's consistently brighter than the G3 and the S95, well, S95C doesn't have Dolby Vision, but as bright as or brighter than the S95C in regular HDR is Vivid Mode Dolby Vision for sports. But the only way you're going to get that is via HDMI, Chromecast with Dolby Vision enabled. You cannot get that on an internal app. On the internal app, whether it's YouTube TV or anything else, you are stuck with either SDR or HDR in Vivid Mode, and it's less bright than the G3. And so all the benefits of QD OLED are not, you don't get it watching SDR or just basic sports streaming. They're not streaming in as if you care about white color gamut, right? However, I do prefer the Sony skin tones. So if that's important to you, but if brightness and contrast is important to you, I personally prefer the S95C for sports. G3 is slightly brighter. I just like the S95C's contrast a little bit better. Okay, now HDR streaming. So this one is something that a lot of you do. Netflix, Prime Video, all that stuff, right? YouTube. I don't think the A95L justifies the premium for streaming HDR content. This is as opposed to high quality Kaleidoscape or high quality disc, right? That's a separate review. This is for people who watch 80% of the time HDR streaming or SDR streaming, low bitrate content, whatever it is, through your TV, through the internet to your TV. Get the A95K if you like the Sony color. The A95L and the A95K will be indistinguishable streaming HDR. Netflix, it doesn't matter, right? Dolby Vision, it looks great, fine. But keep in mind, the Dolby Vision on the A95L is less bright than the Dolby Vision on the G3. Which one's accurate? It really doesn't matter, because at this point, choose Dolby Vision Vivid, Dolby Vision Bright, it doesn't matter. But the G3 consistently is slightly brighter in Dolby Vision than the Sony A95L, and it has less to do with which one's more accurate and more to do with, well, it's Dolby Vision, it's impact, and it should be bright, so G3 delivers, but the G3 has its own issues, right? It's got a little bit of black crushing, and Dolby Vision, it's less of that crushing, but the Sony, it's more of the shadow detail, but these are very subtle, right? If you like that, get the A95K. Again, we're back to streaming. The A95L is supposed to bring that extra brightness to the table. I'm not seeing it with what I have done so far, but I know you're thinking, wait, but his TV's likely broken. True, but is the A95K that much worse? I think the G3 is that much better for basic HDR streaming, Dolby Vision streaming, and we're talking streaming. I have to repeat that. And many of you are like, wait, it's QD OLED. What about that extra color volume, color gamut? You're not going to see it in streaming. You might see it a little bit in the HDR brightness, but guess what? The A95L is as bright as the G3 in The Witcher. I just couldn't change all the other stuff, right? I couldn't do the color enhancement, or I couldn't do the advanced contrast enhancer. I couldn't play with the brightness preferred or gradation preferred. But in HDR, the Sony briefly got a little bit brighter, but it's not even worth the difference, right? I mean, the subtle differences, get the A95K. Now, 77-inch is where the A95L makes a difference, because you want Sony. A95K does not come in a 77-inch. Okay, suddenly the 77-inch makes a difference, because the G3 does not offer Sony motion. The G3 does not offer color accuracy out of the box. The G3, I agree with many of you, out of the box it is green even after calibration. Mine has a touch of that green, and there's that pink tint, there's a DSC, there's a uniformity issue that's consistently noticeable on WOLED. On my G2, I see the pink tint in certain cloudy scenes. Not this one, but in other ones. And the QD OLED does not have that. So, but then get the A95K, if it's smaller than 77-inch, at 77-inch, it's between the S95C and, so now we're down to S95C, which comes in all the same sizes as the A95L, as well as the S90C. For most of you, if you've never had a Sony before, get the S90C and call it a day. If this is an upgrade from a C8, C7, right? It's, some older OLED, get the S90C, because you never had that Sony comfort, familiarity, the colors and the motion. If you're coming from a Sony, sure, get the A95L, because you're going to notice the S95C and the S90C, their settings, their differences, that will bother you. But for those who have no loyalty to Sony or Samsung, save a huge amount of money and get the S90C, because in HDR content, it doesn't matter if it's Dolby Vision. I feel that the Samsung has the best HDR streaming tone mapping out of the box. Between static and active, I'm done. It fits all of my needs. Sony, well, had mine worked. I could have played with it a bit more, but even if you wanted to tweak it more, the G3, you could also tweak it as well. So let me know if this changes your mind what to buy, because I think the A95L does have a place, and we'll talk about that place later, but this is why this stream in particular, we're doing this live stream, is for those of you who are 80%, 90% streaming Netflix on the internet through an external streamer, and natively the YouTube TV app doesn't compare. The YouTube TV app on the Sony, like any, okay, so my opinion is native apps suck. Doesn't matter if it's the Samsung, the G3, or the Sony. I prefer external app. Chromecast, Roku, Apple TV. You will consistently get better image quality and more settings, right? Dolby Vision, not Dolby Vision, so forth. So don't get the Sony because the native apps are awesome. It's not. Now, let's address your questions, if there's any, and then we'll close out for the day. Let's see what you got here. Okay, so we'll start with Getty G, Matt. What is the big difference? Oh, here you go. What is the big difference between the last stream and this one? The big difference is I was unable to confirm Dolby Vision Vivid is the brightest mode that Sony offers, and is brighter than any other TV. I mean, it is bright. It competes with S95C. It's brighter than the G3 in Vivid mode. It is. So for those of you who are watching sports, Dolby Vision external streamer like Chromecast, the A95L makes a case for itself. The Vivid Dolby Vision is just, wow, brilliant. And it holds on to that brightness. I was unable to test how long it dimmed. So what I discovered, and this is earlier, well, I'm sure you saw it, Getty G, man. After a few minutes, 5 minutes to 10, you will notice that in Vivid mode, the Sony drops its brightness. Now, in regular filmmaker, or in this case, professional mode, the Sony holds on to that brightness longer. But when you push it to its brightest picture mode, I think it's just doing that to win the pattern wars, right? The measurements wars, because it does get super bright and arguably slightly brighter than G3, but very briefly. But in Dolby Vision Vivid, it probably is going to hold on to that a bit more. So that's one. And then another one would be, well, there's the change from the A90, because I went home and looked at my A95K, just getting a feel for the TV. The A95L at the 65 and 55 inch, save money and get the A95K. The 77 inch is where it's at. And at the end, it just confirms that for me, this kind of content, I would get the S95C or the G3 before I get the A95L at the 55 and 65 inch for this use case, streaming and sports, right? Now, we will talk about high quality content, specifically, the best image quality, 4K, kaleidoscope, right? You have an expensive system. You want to see creator's intent like it was meant to be seen, and then you need the A95L calibrated, and then we'll see. Now, I will still have the uncalibrated version, so we'll see how that is. But the shootout coming up 2 weeks, right? I'll be there September 27th through October 1st. We will have all calibrated TVs compared. But in this case, it's just, well, and then for me, my broken, and what else is different? My advanced contrast enhancer broke on my TV. I don't think it's the firmware, it's probably the TV, and as well as my tone mapping, shifting, toggling between gradation preferred and brightness preferred didn't make a difference on mine. So, yeah, let's see. Check those settings on cinema just to see if it's a picture mode. Classy. Thank you for that suggestion. Let us try that right now. Can't say I'm not being exhaustive here. Cinema. Okay, we're in cinema mode. And all right, here we go. All right, let's see. Off clearly. Now, let me turn down the exposure so you guys can see the jump. So we're turning it off. Definitely there's an issue. It works, right? That's actually a good scene, so I'm going to rewind it just to that. All right. Okay, so off, gradation preferred, yes. Brightness, okay, no change. Let's go to advanced contrast enhancer. It's at medium. Let's turn it off. Nope, no change. So whether it's cinema or, let's just go to vivid mode and see what happens. Yeah, just to be sure we're thorough. Okay, vivid mode. You know what? Vivid mode is always on brightness preferred. Let's go to standard. Okay, there we go. Okay. Yeah, no change between brightness preferred and gradation preferred. Advanced contrast enhancer. Oh, it's very subtle. Oh, so subtle. I mean, maybe that's meant to be. The advanced contrast enhancer, subtle, barely anything other than it looks like it's a slight shift in standard mode, but that could be it, could it? I mean, okay, let me ask you guys, from what you've seen, should I keep the TV and this is what it's meant to be, or should I swap it out? It doesn't matter to me either way, but I really want to make sure that I have an accurate assessment for you guys. So before we head out, let me know. From what you've seen, play it safe, swap it, or this is the TV as it should be. Because in standard mode, I saw the advanced contrast enhancer, the slight shift between off, low, medium, and high, but no shift at all between gradation preferred and brightness preferred. Okay, so just return this broken TV and get a new one. Then start your review again. The best one is this, but FOMO, how are you going to return it? Uber, bus, or Metro? Thank heavens I don't live in Europe. I have a minivan. It's going to go straight into my minivan, my friend. Swap, yeah, swap. Yep. What about live color? It did. You know what? Let's get into a scene where live color would make a difference. I'm with you. Let's see if live color works. That could be. And I think we're still in standard mode, so let's go to live. But again, oh, here we go. This is a great one for live color, right? There we go. Oh, what? Okay, live color. Let's see. Because many of you love live color. I'm a big fan of live color. Standard mode, because I saw some shifting in the, oh, okay, so medium. All right, let's see. Off. Not, ooh, so high, I saw a touch more color. Let me see, let me go to see if there's any shift in professional mode. So live color is off. It's very subtle, so I think live color is working. Let's try, yeah, gradation preferred, not working. Advanced contrast enhancers on high. Nope, not working. So advanced contrast enhancer is not working. That's good enough for me to make this swap. But I think live color was working, Rand, so arguably it's working. What's wrong with the TV? So obviously you just joined us. Just real quick, the only two things wrong is I suspect my tone mapping isn't working. going from gradation and brightness preferred, there's no change at all, no matter what the content is. And in some content, turning it off and turning it on didn't work. And on the Panasonic, turning it off and on activated tone mapping, but then I could not toggle between brightness preferred or gradation preferred, and my advanced contrast enhancer does not work at all in any mode, any source. And we tried this with a splitter, without a splitter, native, not native, HDR, or native, not native, YouTube app. So, and we found this early in the stream, right, with YouTube. So the argument is, it's probably my TV because no other owner is complaining of this. But again, it's so early, who knows? So the early owners, if they're catching this stream, hopefully they're exploring it. And if they also have this problem, then it's definitely the firmware or whatever setting where it is. But if I'm the only one who has this, then just to make sure it's just not my TV, I will swap it because it's just not worth waiting around. Just swap it, update it, let's see what happens, right? Because at the end of the day, this is the advice I would give you guys. Oftentimes, your window to return is very short. 15 days, 30 days, depending on your retailer, 2 months if you're at Best Buy. But ultimately, if you're close to that window and you're watching this video later, you're like, should I return it? Just swap it. If you have any questions at all, swap it if you only have 2 days until your return period. Now, I just got this last week, but because I want you guys to have the most accurate review possible, I will swap it and let you know what happens. Oh, missed super chats. Thank you, Classy. Let me go up there. Yeah, sorry. I'm running solo today, so I don't have anyone to tell me, yeah, you have a super chat. Here we go. That, and I'll go backwards. As I grow up, I'll see you guys. I'm confused. Sony fans talk about how great Sony is because of accuracy, yet are upset that about brightness preferred and contrast enhancer not working. So you understand that Sony purists are completely different than Sony TV fans who, I'm going to use KG as an example, and Brian, right? They love live color. It's about the reality creation, the live color. Sony fans like the features they get, no different than Samsung fans. They have it in active. They have it on dynamic mode. I know so many Samsung TV owners who are always watching in dynamic mode, right? And so on the Sony side, not the enthusiasts, not the cinema purists, we're talking Sony TV fans, you'll be surprised how many people always watch it with live color on and reality creation on Max, whatever. And that's fine, right? And so for me, if they like advanced color or contrast enhancer, on my TV, it's broken. Doesn't mean that it's not on theirs, so that's another issue. But yeah, they should be upset. Those who are purists, they apply to LG owners as well. Because remember, LG owners are always crowing, 3D LUT, we are more accurate than Sony. Sony can't come close to LG accuracy. We are the Hollywood OLED Dolby Vision reference monitor. So LG fans are the same in my opinion, right? As far as LG purists, right? The purists, you got two camps, you got the Sony and the LG, and they're not going to turn anything else on. So, but yeah, fair enough. But Sony fans, I think, are no different than Samsung fans. I love the live color, especially when you're watching cartoons or whatever, right? Sometimes it makes the skin tones a little funky, but okay. Let me scroll up and find more of these super chats, if there's any more. All right, buddy love, thank you. What I like is a TV with no internal apps. I don't even use internal apps. Okay, I take it back. If it was my TV, I don't use internal apps. At home, everybody uses internal apps, except when I have it on my ultra short throw, I use my Roku stick, but my Samsung TV, the QM8 that we still have, they just watch Samsung TV Plus and all the internal apps on there. The Sony A95K, we use internal apps. I'm just too lazy to get an external streamer because they have to teach the family, put an HDMI this and that. I'm like, you know what? Here's a remote, click Netflix, and you're done, or Prime or whatever. And on the TCL, same thing, right? It's a Roku remote. I got that older TCL with the Roku system. So, internal apps, I'd say 99%. You'll be surprised. Roku already is laying off people because sales of its stick is dropping. It's already announced that people have slowly pulled away from external streamers and are just using what's on the TV. Now, you guys may not, like Buddy Love, but you are like the ones who are getting maybe hard media, all that stuff. Most people are just using their TV. And so eventually I'm going to have to review the TVs with their internal apps, comparing them. So, all right, let's see if there's any more super chats. But thank you for your patience, everyone. I think I caught you all. Okay, if I missed your super chat, let me know. Otherwise, I think I have all of you. I like the convenience of internal app as well. Now, for review purposes, I got the Chromecast, I got the Roku, I got the Kaleidoscope, but at home, I use the external streamer for my ultra short throw because their internal stuff is not very good, right? It's just bare bones, which most ultra short throws are kind of right now. I think even LG and Samsung is not quite as good as their TVs. So, but once their internal apps get up to snuff on ultra short throws, I probably wouldn't use an external streamer either. Okay, so thank you for your patience. This is definitely a surprise. So when my thumbnail said it's weird, this is weird. I did not expect this at all, mostly because the firmware, so I keep on blaming the firmware. It could be the TV. Its day has come, right? Because I had it running for its break-in for the last 100 hours or so. And who knows, maybe that did it, right? And then I had the firmware update, and now a bunch of stuff wasn't working properly. But either way, I think this review is still relevant for those of you watching TVs, streaming, sports. Purists, that's for another video. Okay, thank you, everyone. Stop the FOMO. And, oh, before I go, if you guys do want to get the Sony A95L 77-inch, because my recommendation is 55 and 65, get the A95K like Lisa has. But for the 77-inch and you want the A95L, definitely give Robert Zone of Electronics a call because he is offering a bundle with the TV that's heavily discounted and 5% additional store credit applied to that bundle. So you get another discount. And I believe if you're not in his state, he will also pay the tax, the sales tax. So that's like 9% or whatever your state sales tax is. If your state has sales tax, he will pay that plus free shipping and a 5% discount against any of his bundles. So that's just something to think about if you're going with the A95L 77-inch, which is a lot of money once you add that up. Okay, we are done. Yeah, Lisa does win, by the way. I know she has the A95K. Okay, thank you for putting up with this. We will talk later. So much drama on this one. Until next time, stop the FOMO.